Hi, good morning, everyone. I see some people still coming in. It's nice for you guys to join us. I see, hi, Alex, Amir, Antoine, Dido, nice to meet you. Thank you for joining us for the webinar. Huberto, I see you have your hands up. I did send you a message to ask if there's anything we can help with, so let us know. But for now, we see people pouring in, so thank you. Thank you for joining us on this webinar on this great sunny Wednesday with Solarplaza. So welcome. This is a webinar on sustainably sourcing quality best products in China. This is the agenda that we will cover today. So my name is Dee. I work for Solarplaza, and I will cover kind of the introduction bit, and I will help introduce the speakers and do the Q&A. So we have two presentations, one from Ville and Johnny, who's Director of Business Development in the Nordics Sinovoltaics. Sinovoltaics is a technical compliance and quality engineering consultant. So they will cover, why should you look into quality assurance? Why is it important? How do you do factory testing? And some do's and don'ts. And then we will cut to Johnny Browaeys, who is the Europe team lead for Moonick Asia. And they are a team that does agile sourcing and procurement from China, basically. And they will take this further. They'll look into how you can build insurance and build good relationships with these factories, and how you can sustainably source quality best products in China. And then at the end, they will both come on stage and you can ask them any questions that you have. So Solarplaza, this is us. We firmly believe and we're really passionate about sharing knowledge and network, all things related to solar, because we believe firmly that the sun is the solution. As you can see, we have organized over 250 events. I think we just had our 250th event 2 events ago, so yay. And yeah, we're really popular in 51 countries and we have a huge network. We're building a platform and we continue to have these events and these webinars, which is great to welcome all of you to. So this webinar is the lead up to our battery tour China. It is a 5-day program filled with visits to 5 factories. There's an R&D center as well that will be visiting, a testing lab. There'll be lots of networking gatherings, and there's a huge opportunity basically to meet face to face with all these potential partners in China and kind of, see how you can work together, which we're really passionate about. You can see below as well what else the details the tour includes. So, practical notes. If you have any questions, you will see on the top right, there is a question box, kind of a speech bubble with a question mark on it. Please use them. We will, there's plenty of time for questions at the end. If you have any technical issues, also let us know through the question box. We will get to you right away. And at the end, this presentation slides and this recording will be shared with all of you. So you will get everything. Do not worry. All right. Before we start, I wanted to share a really cool note. So there's almost 400 of us registered from all over the world. So you can see right now, sourcing best products from China is quite a global issue and is something we're really interested in. So I wanted to get to know a few of you joining this webinar today. I have a bit of a question. So I just wanted to know, why did you join this webinar? You can see it pop up in a bit. Yeah, so just curious, and best also for us to know how we can help you, or and maybe good for the speakers coming up to also tailor their talks accordingly too. Okay, so some of you are looking to source best products from China. All right. You currently source best products, but you want to learn more. You're casually interested. Okay. So a casual interest, just sourcing, sourcing batteries. Okay, so it's a pretty neat spread from what I can see. So it feels like, you've come to the right place. And I'm excited to start the next topic, basically. Okay, great. There was a bit of a delay, but we're ready to go. So our first speaker is Ville Julin. He's the Director of Business Development Nordics. He is an energy storage expert and he has worked on huge BESS products. He has a great portfolio globally as well, but he's also experienced in the R&D side, in the development side of batteries. So Villa, I invite you to turn on your camera. And we will give the floor to you. My colleague will give you the mic control, and you can take the presentations going forward.
Okay, thank you, Dee, for the introduction.
Of course, take it away.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide. So before starting, I would like to ask you a simple poll question. So what kind of quality control do you currently implement for your BESS assets? Nothing. I trust my supplier. Audits, FAT monitoring, site commissioning, asset monitoring. So just take a short time to answer that, and I'm interested in knowing of, well, hopefully after this webinar, we might have a bit of different results or thoughts on this. Okay, so it's fairly spread out. So yeah, my objective for today is that you will leave with a bigger toolkit to improve your next best project success. And as Dee mentioned, my name is Ville Julin. I'm Director of Business Development here at Sinovoltaics. And my personal objective is to create as big impact on the green transition as possible. And I think that with batteries, I'm doing my part. Going to the next slide, okay. So brief introduction of Sinovoltaics. So we focus on factory audits and quality inspections of renewable energy assets. So we have done audits and inspections globally, all over the world, in solar panel factories, batteries, inverters, transformers, cables, to name a few. We normally do this for utility companies, IPPs, developers, and so far we have helped to de-risk over 18 gigawatts of projects globally. So why my topic today is quality assurance. Why does it matter? So you can think of Murphy's Law, that if something can go wrong, it will go wrong. Of course, I'm not that gloomy person myself, but I still believe that it's good to prepare for a plan B. And if you think about the battery industry, it's evolving very rapidly. So you have new chemistries coming. The containers and batteries are having more energy density. There's more features coming. And at the same time, the factories are trying to cope up with increased demand and also to automate the highly manual labor that they have in the factories. So in my opinion, quality assurance is one of the best ways to de-risk your project and also to avoid costs and missed revenues that faulty components or safety issues, for example, can cause to your project. We can divide this kind of quality assurance in two basic categories: before purchasing or production, and after production. If we start with what happens before purchasing, it's normal to do supplier verifications, So very often you do a quality audit for the factory and other kind of audits. So I will kind of point out the key learnings and things to think on that. So first of all, in quality audits for factories, it's not just about checking boxes, checking if the supplier has certain certificates, procedures, nice promises, but it's also very important to have boots on the ground. For us, that has been great success factor. Going to the factories, having local teams that can talk with native language of the manufacturers, for example, Chinese, Turkish, and so on. And this kind of method gives us a very good understanding of what is actually happening at the factory floor and by whom. And always these kind of audits give you a very good insight of what is actually happening in the factory, and even very mundane things can have a big impact on the end product quality. It can be something as simple as storing components in a slightly over temperature, or humidity is not in place, or there's some soldering equipment not being like soldering equipment hasn't been calibrated correctly. Very simple things like that can have a huge impact. Secondly, ESG and traceability audits are becoming very important, and especially with battery industry, since it's a very complex, the supply chains are very complex. So you can have companies producing cathodes, anodes, cells, modules, and then closer to you guys, factories that assemble those modules into racks and containers, and also many other kind of suppliers in that supply chain. And especially now that in this solar industry, there has been many incidents on forced labor. Many investors and financiers are looking to have stricter reports on this ESG topic. Additionally, the European Union battery passport is coming closer every day. I think now the estimated time is in the next 2 years. And in the past, in other roles, when asking for ESG reports from the manufacturers directly, there has been big discrepancies in the quality of those reports depending on the manufacturer. And I think today it's a topic that you really want to avoid burning. But also on the other hand, you can think it as a strategic advantage for your company. So it can help you get better financing. It can also help you get the project since you have your due diligence in order, but it can also help you sell the project later. And thirdly, when doing these kind of audits, follow-up matters. So no factory is perfect, and some of the habits might die hard. So factory might be thinking that, hey, we have always been doing this like in this manner, so there's no need to do anything about this. But almost always when we find these kind of deviations, we can also help to improve the quality of that factory. And next, we have so after purchasing or after production, you have factory acceptance testing. Let me scroll down this. So it's not the only one. You can do also site acceptance testing and battery monitoring, but today I will focus more on the factory acceptance testing, which in my opinion is the most important tool, but still it's being a bit neglected in these days. Not enough emphasis is put on that. But if you think about spending one more day at the factory rather than having to spend one more month at the site troubleshooting issues, I think it's something very worthwhile thinking of. So an FAT basically consists of 4 topics or categories. So you have visual inspections, where you check that all of the installations are looking good, container doors are closing and opening, coating of the paint of the container is looking good, these kind of basic tests. Then you have electrical testing, so you might check for the grounding resistance, output voltage of different components, insulation resistance, and so on. Then one of the most important ones is performance testing. So it basically means that you fully discharge and charge the battery and monitor that data to understand if there was some issues, for example, with heating. Did you get the energy capacity out of the container which was promised? So these kind of tests are very important. And fourthly, you have safety testing, where you check for the fire suppression system, that the heat and smoke sensors are working, stuff like that. And actually, this has been where we have found most issues during FATs. So in every 4th container that we have inspected, there has been issue with the fire safety system. And to me, that's quite alarming. And then, since manufacturers want to be on time and get the products out on time, they are also introducing some shortcuts that I'm going to show the most common ones. So first one is to not do an FAT at all. And this is of course a big red flag, and the reasoning for this often is that the supplier is saying that we are going to do a site acceptance testing anyway, so you don't need to do this one. But yeah, it's a very, very crucial one to do, so try to avoid that. Then, secondly, you have, okay, the slide is slightly lagging. Okay, secondly, no performance testing. So this is also a big risk for your project. So many suppliers say that we are only going to do visual inspections, electrical testing, but not the actual performance testing. And if you don't get the energy capacity out that is promised, or there's something else wrong with the battery at the site, then you're losing big. And something that has been now more common, especially with bigger projects. Okay, let me get that again. Is sampling FATs, meaning that if you have, for example, a project with 15 to 20 containers, the manufacturer says that they will only do FAT for a selected 1 or 2 or a few of those containers. But this is also a big risk, because the battery manufacturing is still quite manual intensive. So if you have inspect container number 10 and 15, it doesn't prove that container number 19 and 20 would be without issues. And fourthly, is limited performance testing. So in this method, the manufacturer says that we will only test the performance, but with limited power. So that's an easy way for them to pass every test, because there's not going to be issues with heating of the container, for example. But once again, this is something that you really want to avoid, because it doesn't give the full image of the battery. So this is kind of how traditional FAT works, but you can also go beyond the traditional FAT. So if you think about that you have just bought a container, you agree on a certain energy capacity, and let's say you have done the FATs and the results are looking good. So you have the correct energy capacity, round trip efficiency is looking good, output voltage, and so on. So is that everything? You can think about a battery container as a basket of fruits. So you buy a nicely packaged container, or a basket of fruits, but you don't know if there's going to be a rotten apple at the bottom of the basket. So the similar kind of analogy works with batteries. So in the overall level, the container might be good, but there might be some modules or packs that are not working properly. And those kind of issues then can creep up in the site acceptance testing, or even after years of operation, and can cause like faults and safety issues, and also lacks of efficiency. And since if there's some faulty modules, the ones that are working properly need to balance it out, so it will also affect the aging of the battery. So we have developed a software that can test all of the packs in a container. So from a container, you will see normally like 4 to 5 parameters checked, but when we go deeper, you can have from all of those packs inside the container the same data, and we can see which ones are not working correctly. So to me, this is a great way to de-risk your project, getting the out of shape packs out of the container and replace them with new ones. So then you can also get higher energy capacity for your container. And a couple takeaways from this I would like you to remember is that quality assurance is a process, it's not an event. So factories, technology, laws and regulations are changing all the time. So a factory today is not the same as it was yesterday, nor it's same as it's going to be tomorrow. And secondly, FAT is one of the most important weapons for you to secure the quality of the batteries that you're buying. So really try to avoid the shortcuts that suppliers might try to impose on you. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ville, for your presentation and for your important note. I agree. Quick question maybe before we cut. When you say it's a process, you mean it's an ongoing process that constantly you iterate and work on?
Sorry, which process?
You said that quality assurance is a process, not an event. So it's something that people constantly have to work on and make sure that it's updated and yeah, good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So if you have done an audit for a supplier 5 years ago or one year ago, things are changing very rapidly since the factory lines are changing. They're becoming more automized. New technologies are being implemented, so things change and factories change. So that's kind of my what I was referring on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll see you again in the Q&A. All right, so I invite Johnny Browaeys to turn on his camera to, supplement Villa's presentation and cover a bit more on how it is on the ground. So Johnny is the Europe team lead and Moonick Asia. As I said, they sort of help people source and manage and procure good energy solutions from Asia as well. He has a lot of experience, more than 30 years of his career in China with lots of executive roles. So, Johnny, I give the floor to you to take us through this part of the webinar.
All right. Good morning, everyone, or should I say good evening or good night, because it seems we have a lot of countries today. Just out of curiosity, how many countries do you think are joining our call today? If you want to take a guess, you can drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to tell you. So we've got actually over 60 countries today. And for me, just like Dee said, it really means that, well, China is a critical player. And the global energy transition is moving fast. Everybody is interested. But I don't want to throw numbers at you today. I would like to give you some insight, a feeling, so that you can have your own foresight on what you can expect, so that you can come up with your own approach to get the best products for the best projects. So with that, I'll start the presentation. So I just returned from China myself, and I've been living there for over 20 years. And I met a lot of old friends to get a sense of what is currently happening. And what I saw really is confirming what many of us are hearing. There is a hyperactive market, there is massive overcapacity, and a lot of activity is aimed at feeding the world. But this also creates challenges because there's so many players, so much noise, and it's hard to see the forest for the trees. So China is fast, entrepreneurial, and also deeply opportunistic. So people are tuned to government signals that point to where new opportunities arise. And once a direction is clear, the whole market moves in waves. It's fast, dynamic, and opportunistic, which means it keeps moving left and right, up and down. That's how the business works there. But today, this means we must watch out for three key risks. So we now see that the short-term gains really are at the cost of long-term reliability. Companies now may offer low upfront prices to win contracts, but they compensate it by using cheaper components, they cut corners on integration or testing, and they avoid long-term service commitments. So you may feel that you win a good deal, but downstream you get the failure risks. Second, we see commission-based deals without accountability. So sales agents or traders, they earn a commission based on closing a deal, not on ensuring project performance. Now, they may push suppliers who aren't qualified or who hide the risks to make the deal happen faster. So the buyer may get a system that looks good on paper, but lacks structural integrity or after-sales support. And then third, so we also see a lot of all-in-one offers, and that are actually masking subcontracting layers. So an integrator may claim full system ownership, but in reality, they buy cells from one party, they outsource the battery management system, they subcontract the building of the container. So ultimately no one is responsible, or warranties and liabilities are fragmented. It's really complicated. And with that, you get a flood of secondary players. You get agents, traders, integrators. Some have deep expertise, and some really don't know what they're doing or what they're selling. It's a bit like someone putting a BMW engine into a Fiat chassis. And oh, to be fair to both sides, it could also be putting a Ferrari engine into a Volkswagen. So I don't want to choose one over the other. But it might look impressive, but the components are not designed to work together. You don't just get poor performance, you actually get serious stress risks on the whole system. And this is exactly the challenge that we face today in the battery storage market. It's hard to know who you're dealing with. Now, many players, they just want to catch the wave without really understanding what they're offering. And today we see hundreds of system integrators claiming expertise, but they assemble parts without owning quality. So you won't know the difference until your system fails. So one buyer I know nearly signed a agreement with an integrator at an expo. We traced their bill of materials. Everything was outsourced. No integration knowledge whatsoever. They were essentially repackaging ingredients from 4 OEMs. So I always ask people to ask the supplier one very simple, honest question. What exactly are you making yourself? And what do you source from others? Now, let's move to another point that is often overlooked. The logistics and the physical realities of these battery systems. Battery energy storage systems are extremely heavy. They're also classified as dangerous goods. So if poorly made, they can overheat, burn, or even explode. So we've seen real cases where project teams couldn't even unload containers because the cranes weren't strong enough, or batteries that were too heavy for legal road transport. So that would be damaging infrastructure or causing unexpected delays. And then comes again the question, who is responsible for these problems? Who manages the permits and special transport requirements? Who has real experience with this? These are things that many project developers or EPC companies never had to deal with before, but now they do. And to make things even more complicated, maintenance accounts for roughly 30% of a project's lifecycle cost. So if a system is poorly integrated, it will also degrade faster, impacting long-term performance. And you must ask yourself, will the battery company you're buying from still be around in 2 to 3 years? What after-sales support will they actually deliver? Because we are seeing a very competitive and unstable market, and not all companies will survive. So you may be proud to have bought yourself something like a Rolls-Royce energy storage system, but over time, even the Rolls-Royce looks dirty and will get problems if not properly maintained. And as said, if systems are not properly integrated, they not only lose performance, they become dangerous. You don't want to get into that kind of trouble. Next, so batteries are capital intensive, as you know, and delays affect project returns and financial viability. So you will not only get financing or insurance if you don't have a monitoring plan and a system in place that ensures performance and minimizes damages from fallout. But most manufacturers' monitoring software isn't insurer-grade. So insurance depends on trusted systems that are monitored in accepted ways. And we see clients not getting their project insured until we implemented a third-party monitoring system recognized by the insurer. So you can also use this as a red flag, because if a supplier can't be underwritten or reinsured, then you know something isn't right. And again, buying a battery without a monitoring system is no different like buying a car without a dashboard. Would you ever buy a car without a dashboard? So how do you manage all this complexity? And the answer lies in the value chain. So yes, you have large players like a Cattle, BYD. They are reliable in many ways. But for them, most small buyers, like most of us, are not a priority. And even a 200 megawatt hour order is considered small for those big guys. So you also often end up negotiating with a single sales department that is trying to sell you what they have in stock. When in fact, to deliver the best solution to your product, to your project, you need alignment on solution development. You need engineer to spec and also alignment with logistic partners in Europe. So European regulations are complicated and scattered. This is still a weak point even for the big players in China. Now, you also need to think ahead. So technology is moving so fast. So what will be the best solution in 1 or 2 years from now when your project is operating? If you simply buy what's available in the stock today, you might fall behind the market. And players on this side of the world who can optimize across the Chinese value chain and move at the speed of the best Chinese companies, they will be the ones who win here and also elsewhere. And this brings me to a very important point. So how do you gain access to the right circles in China? Because in China, business is based on circles of trust. This is what I call circle logic. And I see this not only professionally, but also in my personal life, because I'm married to a Chinese wife. And being in the circle of the family comes with trust. Being in the circle of a business comes with trust, but also responsibility. You take care of each other without having to ask. And if you betray that trust, you are quietly excluded. This is something that many companies outside of China really have a hard way to understand. Now, in the business world, for example, these circles, they allow companies to be incredibly resilient because they share resources, they solve problems creatively with each other, and they move fast. So for example, during COVID, one of our clients was missing key parts, but their partners within the circle helped them source components from unexpected places, even passing materials from one partner to another just to keep the production moving, the value chain moving. And that's the strength of this system. So, but if you want to benefit from it, you need to be inside the circle and you need to behave according to those unwritten rules. And these are often not so easy to understand. But I've already spoken longer than I planned. I just wanted to share this with you. Again, some insights from my gut as I posted on my LinkedIn. During the Solarplaza China tour, I'll be organizing a small workshop in Shanghai about how you move from a price to partnership. So helping you to understand how to navigate this ecosystem. You also get hands-on support from Sinovoltaics and Moonick Asia, who can help you to read between the lines during the actual factory visits. You're not going to get just a shiny tour, seeing the things that they want you to see. So, and for those companies with specific needs, I'm still considering organizing tailored matchmaking as well to connect buyers with vetted suppliers, one-to-one or in small groups, because that is what works best for building those true partnerships and also to get that circle. Now, if you're interested, please just reach out because we'll be happy to explore how we can support you during that China tour. So my last slide gives an overview of which capabilities that you need to cover all the issues that we discussed today in this presentation from myself and also from June Ville. So we talked about, for example, financial stability of suppliers. We talked about negotiating prices versus payment terms, because it's not all about price. We also talked about cell quality not being the same as container quality. We talked about unreliable vertical integration. We talked about poor communication when problems arise, about unclear liability for failures, and even unknown component suppliers. So Moonick Asia typically evaluates and complements your gaps and supports your strategy and approach to navigate this ecosystem. Finally, I would like to say that we are looking at a huge opportunity for both sides because energy storage, energy resilience, and renewable energy production is only going to be more important than ever. Now AI is on the rise. And I also want to thank both Solarplaza and Sinovoltaics for the opportunity to work on this together. Because as I said, I really value partnerships from the heart. So in this way, I have a bit of a Chinese thinking. So I look forward to collaborate and see how many companies we can help to find their way into China. So thank you very much, everyone, for your attention and enjoy the rest of today's session.
Thank you for your presentation, Johnny. And now we're gonna dive right into the Q&A, everyone. So we already have a few questions, but just to remind the audience that there is a question box on the top right of your screen. And yeah, you can type all your questions in there. Okay, so Ville, Johnny, I invite you both to turn on your camera. I also want to invite Johnny's colleague, Nick, who is the team lead of Asia, to join the Q&A session as well. So if all of you can turn on your camera. Perfect. Johnny, I think you're still muted. I guess that's a choice. No worries. And Nick Chang is also here. Perfect. So our first question, it comes from Suresh, JSR Renewables. They asked, what verification can we do when it comes to supplier verification as per a quality point of view? So maybe Villa, you can run through this, and then Johnny, give any supplement answers.
Yeah, so on the supplier side of view, well, there's basically, you can do quality audits, ESG audits, supply chain mapping audits. But if we focus on the quality side, like you can, of course, you can check that the company has all of the certificates. It's very common to follow through, like what is the standard operating procedure that the manufacturer is manufacturing solar panels or batteries or inverters, and then actually following up on that in the factory floor. So checking each part of the manufacturing process against that, let's say, guidebook of how to do it. So then you will see all of the issues there. Like, for example, if in the standard operating procedure they say that these raw components should be stored in between 19 to 21 degrees in this humidity, for example, and then you go on the tour and realize that, hey, the temperature is actually 23 degrees here. So these kind of things you can do very thoroughly in these factory tours or audits.
Okay, thanks, Villa. Johnny, do you have anything to add on that? Okay, I take it as a no. Then I have another follow-up question. This is from Anonymous, so they didn't share, but they ask, more and more new PV and BESS manufacturing factories we see are opening around the world. So what risks, if any, do you see of these new factory setups? I think perhaps, Johnny, you can start if you're able to turn your microphone on, or is that something that you're... Yeah,
Yeah,
perfect.
I was muted just now, so I apologize. I just wanted
No
to add
worries.
one thing on the supplier verification. So there's many ways you can verify, just like Ville already said. But there are actually very easy ways in China where you can verify a number of things in a way that you can't do here in Europe or in many other places in the world, which
Yeah.
surprises people. So, for example, there's digital information available in the Chinese system that you can access, where you can get indication of like whether this supplier has been having issues in certain factories related to incompliances. So that's just what I wanted to add there. So there's a lot of information digital available that you might not be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Answering the other question,
Yeah.
so well, there is I can't say the name, but I've seen in Shandong a project where basically batteries started to burn and to explode. Um, that's one case. I can't say much more about it. I know another case in this was actually in Europe. The first one was utility. Sorry, it was commercial industrial. The second one is more commercial. So they made products that went into the market, and they had to recall many of the products after they found that there were risks of safety. So the result is basically that but the CEO is no longer working for that company. I'm not sure if this is like a worst case disaster, but for the company, it was a worst case disaster. So luckily, there were not people hurt, but this is another example like I mentioned.
Okay.
I
So,
can add to Johnny's is that I think on the higher level, as you Johnny mentioned, this like how Chinese business works, that it goes in waves, and like they try to move very rapidly.
mm-hmm.
For example, these tariff issues that has been there for a couple of years now, and the Chinese government not giving that much support
Yeah.
for example, battery companies anymore. It has been seen that some or many companies have made big losses during these past
Mm-hmm.
years. So that can also there's like can be many new ones coming, some old ones leaving, but these kind of if if you're making losses, you might try to also cut on costs and do some other kind of corner cutting in terms of production or quality or something else. So
Okay. So some of the biggest risks, Villa, you see with all these new factories is probably just cutting corners, essentially.
Yeah. Do you want one other case? Because this is also something to be aware of. Sometimes how it plays out in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So this it's another project. It's actually in this case it's not with batteries. It's with panels, solar panels, and there was a company that already bought the stock. I mean, they already got the stock in Europe, and then I found out there was a issue with the quality, not giving the right performance. So they checked it, and they found out there was something systemic. So
Mm-hmm.
originally they wanted to renegotiate the price because performance you can calculate by means of return on investment, and you can renegotiate that. But when they saw the systemic issue, they started worrying about the durability of the panels. And when they wanted to open a conversation, they stumbled on deaf ears because they didn't know who they were talking to, whether this person was at the right level, wanting to address it or able to address it, but also whether the company was willing to address it. Now, to make a long story short, this would be a serious issue because it was a failure in their production line. So they basically tried to play deaf, dumb and deaf, and later the company said, well, we do need the panels for a project. We need to have our timeline respected. So they tried to buy from somebody else, and they were refused because the company in China complained
Mm-hmm.
Sinosure that they could not get paid. So anyway, so they got blocked from the market. And to solve this question, we had to really go into the ecosystem. So sometimes it can come in very unexpected ways that causes your troubles in your project here by something that is happening in China, not directly related to the supplier itself, but to the way how it works.
Got it. So going into the ecosystem is important. From that on, we have a lot of questions pouring through, and I propose we tackle them really, really quickly and keep like short and let's say, preppy answers, and then we try and pour through as much as we can. So from Eric Gear, European Energy, they ask, is there a trustable certification that can be requested to the best suppliers? So is there any one certificate that either of you would recommend that we could use?
Maybe Johnny, if you have an idea. I really don't think that there's like a silver bullet on that topic.
No silver bullet, but I wanted to ask Nick if he can give his insight, because there are different things available in China, and it's about leveraging those.
Thanks, Johnny, for the forward. I'm not sure if you can see my face, but I cannot see myself on the camera. But
Yeah, we cannot see
I
you,
just
but we can hear you.
okay, that will be great. Yeah, I agree with Villa that there is no specific certificate or a single certificate to confirm that this supplier is reliable, this product is reliable, because the suppliers has a lot of production lines on different sites, and the technology of the production can be very different over the time because of the technology advancement. So if you want to have a certificate, all of the suppliers can have very good certificate. But if you take a close look at the production line, the most important factor, which is about the cell consistency inside of your system, is of top priority. Which means if you have all of the certificates, but the battery cells are produced from different production lines at different production sites, and then they come
Okay.
together into your system, then you are at the great risk, because over thousands of cycles, or just 1,000 cycles of charge and discharge, then the internal resistance can be very different, and there will be a huge risk. So back to the question, I think this is not a certificate related question. This is more like a quality or reliability related question, and we have to focus on the cell consistency inside of the battery cells to avoid that they might be produced from different production lines or produced
Okay.
from different plants. And that in summary, that's the only concern that we need to focus for other than certificate.
Okay, so there is no one size fits all certificate that if it's slapped on there, it means this is good, but there are some red flags you can look out for, like if the production lines are different or if they're from different plants. Thank you. So
Exactly.
we have
And
okay.
sorry, I just need one more adder on top of it. For each battery cell, there is a like ID card number, so that by
Mhm.
going through this ID number, you can make sure that it's from the same line, same date, or even same bench of raw materials. That this is something we can always pay attention and document it in either supplier system or your system to make sure that it's a safe product, and this will be more reliable than any certifications that granted by third party. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. That's really clear. Then perhaps a follow-up question by Suresh, which kind of follows that because now we know what to look out for. They ask, what parameters can we add when we do process inspections of a BESS system? Villa, I don't know if you want to take this.
Process inspection of a BESS system.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, how would I kind of dissect this? You have the manufacturing lines, and as Johnny said, it's very important to understand where does the subcomponents come from. So is your supplier only assembling the modules or containers, or are they also producing the cells, anodes, cathodes themselves? So I
Yeah.
think that's very important to have in mind, and then kind of inspect how is the whole process being done.
Okay. So similar to the above then. So this is also from Eric from SEMB Corporations. When it comes to warranties and service support, do we deal with one main contractor slash supplier or with individual suppliers? So for the modules, BMS, transformers, inverters, all different parts, maybe Johnny, if you have experience in this for warranties and service reports, one main contractor or individual ones?
I'll answer quickly, but I'm also going to ask Nick to
Nick.
continue on that. Obviously, the less parties, the easier, but you need to know which are the critical components, and you need to build them in the agreement as well. So, Nick, if you want to add some specific things or examples of how you can optimize this.
It depends on which size, how big is the project. If the project is like a PV park plus containerized ESS, then usually the contractor party will be a lot of different parties. And like Johnny said, you need, if there is any identified risk or after sale problem arise after the project is set up, you can always reach out to the specific sub suppliers for the after sales work, and this need to be very clearly stated in the contract, and in commercial way you are protected. And if it's a smaller product, the best way is to always reach out to the if it's an all-in-one product, then it's always good to reach out to the ODM provider or the vendor who is producing this type of products. And for that, I would suggest that there should be a very clear contract before you nominate a supplier or nominate a EPC contract.
Just to add on that, normally it's like for the investor, it's easiest to have like just one contract party for the warranty, which is often the EPC, and the EPC is having back-to-back warranties with the OEM.
Okay,
Thank you.
that is clear. We also have another question here. So they mentioned that they see a lot of manufacturers coming up in the BESS space, new companies opening, closing, and things like that. They asked, how do you guarantee that the chosen supplier will still be able to support them for the next 7 to 10 years? Are there any assurances that any company can offer in this case? And that's from Venugopal from Reliance Group India.
Well, again, there's different elements to look at here. But for example, the financial viability of the company as such, which is a logic thing
Yep.
to do.
Yep.
But at the same time, also, what kind of company are you dealing with? Because, for example, if this is a private-owned company, which is very strong, let's think about the Huawei, right? You can see that the Huawei won't easily go bankrupt, no matter what kind of challenges they face. But they're still a private company. If it's a state-owned enterprise, it might have another way of functioning, because if this is a critical state-owned company, they might have access to capital that other companies may not have, and they have to survive. So the logic of a company failing or not failing is not always the same like what you see in the West. I'll give you another example because I like metaphors. So we've been talking about the housing market in China going to crash already for like several years. Well, did you notice that the prices recently came down and started to relax? Why is that? Because it's not a written rule, but all the contracts basically have been getting a delay to pay back 3 years later. So there's no, how do you call that? There's no capturing of the houses because of regaining the mortgage, like what you see in the US. But basically, it's a lot of how you say it, like deflating the pressure on the sector. So that's why I'm talking about the ecosystem. You need to know who is the player you're dealing with, what is their position, not only on how well they're working, their quality, their financial viability, but also their role in this value chain. That determines a lot, like how well they will survive, because they basically survive on top of on each other or with each other. So it's not even an individual company you need to look at. You need to look at the value chain, and also to what extent you can actually make an agreement with that value chain. That's why it's so important. That's basically my main message of today.
Yep. So what I'm seeing is consider their access to capital, and there is a different dynamic as well on the other side of the world where you have private companies versus state-owned companies that determines how they survive. I have a follow-up from here, and maybe good opportunity for Ville from Sinovoltaics and Johnny from Moonick Asia. Diwakar from Jacobs, they asked, what accountability do both of you offer if a developer or client commissions you for supporting, this de-risking project? Because obviously you work on behalf of them, but can you offer any assurance, any support there?
Yeah, I can quickly answer from our side. So with solar panels, we can offer this kind of warranty claims. So if there's PV panels that we have inspected and there's a valid warranty claim, then we will take care of all the costs associated. So replacing the panels, de-assembly, reinstallations. So that's something that we do on the solar side with Munich RE, but we're also looking into doing something similar with batteries. But
Okay.
yeah, that's on the pipeline.
We will stay tuned then. Do you know when it will be, something that you can roll out?
Difficult to say. Probably something this year.
Looking
But
forward to it then. Johnny, any support on your side on Moonick Asia?
Yeah, so interesting question from Jacobs. I used to work with Jacobs before, so the gentleman from Jacobs will understand that, or the lady will understand that it's all about the value of the project you have and the margin that you have. So considering the business model that Moonick has, it is not reasonable that we would take accountability for the large project. But what we do is we look at where are the bottlenecks, how we can address them, and we basically get to an agreement with regard to does that sufficiently cover the risks. So there are ways of covering risks, but there are ways that we can propose how to cover the risks, and then there might be financial guarantees involved, and not everybody knows those solutions. So we come from that solution, and then there is always a matter of how much you want to pay to cover how much risk. So we stand for what we say in that regard.
Okay. Then that is both really clear. Thank you all for your questions. To take consideration of time, we are going to wrap up quickly. But should there be any more follow-up questions, you can address the speakers, or maybe if there are some questions that they find interesting, they will get back to you directly via email. So then with all this said and done, we have the China battery tour that will happen on the 13th to the 17th of October in Shanghai and Shenzhen. You can use the webinar discount to join us. Both the speakers they're having a workshop there to support you as well, which will be interesting. And yeah, I think as Johnny said, it's important to be there to establish trust and those relationships if there's something that you're interested in doing, which I know some of you are. So I would say thank you all for joining us on this webinar. We hope we answered as many questions as you can. And thank you to our speakers, Ville and Johnny, for joining us, as well as Nick for taking the questions. And I wish you all a great rest of your day.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you. Bye
everyone.
bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye, Mark.